What's up, y'all? It's Shuffle, and it is patch day for Darkest Dungeon. This is the Steadfast Stewards update part 2. Not as extensive as the first one, but we'll go over the notes and the participation and all of that in a little bit near the end. But first, let's get to the actual meat and potatoes of the update. I'm sure everyone's most excited for Leper, and so instead of comparing everything like side by side from old to new, I'm just going to show you what the new stuff does. On Wanderer, Chop now gets a small minimum damage increase, which is nice. So instead of 6 to 12, goes up to 8 to 16 when mastered. That's about it. Purge got some extra damage, and you're going to see this a lot. There's a lot more emphasis on Leper damage here instead of some of the utility, which admittedly, I'm not the biggest fan of, but like I said, we'll have to see how it plays in the wild. Yeah, Purge does a bit more damage from what I remember. Withstand got changed from, obviously live, where it was just some resist buffs and block and taunt for like 3 turns. Now, Leper is closer to being a stance hero. So you pretty much have Withstand stance and Revenge stance. And with Withstand, as you see here, you get your block and taunt for the entire battle. Well, you get taunt and block right away, and then you get block for the rest of the battle. You get resist for the rest of the battle. And when you pop it, it removes your strength and vuln and revenge stance. So you can't have both active. You cannot gain strength for the entire battle. And you have minus 100% crit rate for the battle, but Leper's crit rates are already 5 anyway, so who honestly cares? The odd part is, does not stack, has a cooldown and a use counter. So, you can pop it, I guess this is if you want to like stance, so you can like go back to it, but you can't just keep doing it over and over. And the reason for this is, as you can see at the very bottom line, with the mastered version, they're the exact same, unmastered and mastered, except for the mastered version does not end your turn. Overall, in my opinion, this is not a super great stance in terms of just utility and all that. Like, sure, he takes, you know, a little bit less damage with a constant block, and your resists are passable. At first glance, you may be saying, but Chef, look at that, plus 20% to all dot and some move res. Well, Leper has 10 base on bleed and blight, and then 20 on burn. So these give him normal hero resists for the most part. You know, it'd be nice if that was a bit stronger. Something of note also is Leper's movement resist and stun resist got buffed from 30 to 40. I think going from 20 to 30, and then you get the extra 10 from the altar, I still find this pretty humorous, honestly, in the vein of a joke, because it's the bare minimum, man. Leper needs a bit more than that. And a lot of people will likely say, well, if he has too much, then he can't move him, and that's overpowered. And the thing with move resist is, by itself, it is not a super strong resist, because other people around you can get moved anyway. So Leper could have 2,000 resist, and the person behind him, or the entire team, can get shuffled, and he gets yeeted somewhere different. So it's not like the most overpowered thing ever. And yes, you do get some more from this, but I'd rather just have it inherently, especially because some of these change with paths. Last thing I'll note too is, I feel that these buffs aren't like that good overall. It's only passable when it's upgraded, because it doesn't end your turn. And that kind of opens a whole other can of worms, where it's like, why doesn't Duelist either start in a stance, or why doesn't her stuff end her turn, you know? Because Duelist is someone that historically has a bit of a struggle, that she needs to spend 1 turn to get herself going. Kind of like a Black Reliquary prep round, if you will. Solemnity operating the same as it did before is definitely a head scratcher in a game where Absolution exists and is much stronger. And of course, people are going to be saying, well, Absolution has a cooldown. The cooldown is 1. You can use it from everywhere. Solemnity may have no cooldown, but you can't use it from anywhere, and the threshold's harder. So I don't think having no cooldown justifies him not being able to use it in like rank 3 or even 4. So I wish this would have got changed. The other thing too is, yes, it has no cooldown, but if you have to hit this twice back to back, either you're playing on some kind of challenge mode, or you did something fundamentally incorrect. Because Abomination rarely, if ever, has to need this twice immediately. 1 turn isn't a big deal. Also, it's kind of canon right here at the Coward. Maybe the Defiant. Reflection removes more tokens. And still can't use it in the back. So, remove stress, has a cooldown, and upgraded, you get a bunch of debuff res per token removed, per token type. So you can get up to 3. So you can get up to 30% debuff res for or neutralizing 3 out of, I guess, 4 of these, because you have combo as well. It only heals 1 stress mastered. Like, this admittedly is kind of bad. Hugh got a damage upgrade, thank goodness. Now it's like comparable to Reap. Comparable. Like, obviously it hits a bit harder, so that's good, but that's pretty much it. Like, everything Leper got so far is just plus damage. He lost utility, he got plus damage everywhere, and I'm honest, I don't like it so far. Also, something to be said too with the blinds. I believe his combat start is no longer 2, like a chance of 2. It's just guaranteed 1. And if I remember correctly, this can be resisted. So I guess that's fine. Yeah, Hugh hits harder, so that's pretty good. I mean, Hugh arguably is a pretty solid buff overall. Just the fact that it does hit harder. You know, up to 5 to 10. This is like using a normal attack from a hero on 2 people, so he definitely hits like a truck. Revenge, the second stance, self, strength, turn start, strength, 3 out of 4 times, or 3 out of 4 chance for 1 battle. Bonus speed for 1 battle. Very close to the Berserk mask from the Darkest Dungeon 1 trinket set, if you remember that. He got like bonus speed and damage. Or was it crit? It's been a minute. Yeah. So remove block, remove weaken, remove the withstand buffs. Cannot gain block for 1 battle. Revenge is way better between the 2 of these. He hits way harder, so like these strength tokens are going to have more impact, and he's faster, which helps you damage race a lot better. And as far as block goes, you know, he can generate his own, but you may not need it. And you can always guard him instead of blocking if something goes wrong. Yeah, speed and damage on a character that has pretty good damage and desperately needs speed. Intimidates, hits a little bit harder, and has a cooldown now that gets lowered. So no more intimidate spam, I'm sorry guys. Ruin, new buff, requires self has no ruin. You get 2 ruin tokens. When damaged, more ruin tokens. When the ruin buff expires, you get something called Ruin Has Come. Right here. And so these change per token, or per path. This is the Monarch version, and this is the everything else version. So when you have Ruin Has Come, you deal more damage per token, and then Mastered, it's even more damage, up to 20%. So with that, you, what's the regular Ruin token do? Ruination. Stacks to 10. Okay. Yeah, so you can just stack this up. And yeah, for a couple turns, you keep getting stacks of it. And then after those turns expire, then you get the bonus damage. And you can hit something for, you know, a pretty hefty amount of damage, which is why I'm saying that the revenge side of things is probably better. Like, if you can find a way to feed him a crit token with all of these stacks and a strength, like, you can hit for 100 damage. So, pretty cool. The only issue is you're spending a lot of time juicing this up, so it's like turn 1, you know, it's a free action. That does help it. Again, I don't like the fact that it's a free action, because that almost makes it mandatory to master. But then also, that's the only way these are even usable. Like, they're pretty slow otherwise. And spending an entire turn doing is something no one wants to do, so making it a free action is kind of just a lazy way out. I don't think it's that fun. But if you can do all that and you get your ruin stacks, you can nuke something for an absolute ton of damage. Especially if you can feed him a crit token, like I said, 100 plus. Break could have got more utility, instead just got damage to justify the blinding. So yeah, that's it. They can't, you remove block, they can't gain block, and you self-blind, and you ignore blind if there's a combo. So Chop got a small boost, just because everything else getting more damage would make Chop obsolete. So it had to get a little bit of something. You know, like Chop could easily just have lower chance to self-blind, you know, so you're more willing to just hit this, and the trade-off isn't, you know, let me mandatorily, that's even a word, stack all my buffs, and then I can press Chop for like something huge. You know, it could be, well, Chop does good enough damage where I can skip buffing, and I can just focus on, you know, chopping stuff down. But everything's got damage now. And then Bash gives 2 Immobilized Mastered more damage overall. I think it was 2 to 4 before, or 2 to 4 before. And now it's like 3 to 7, then 5 to 9. That hits really hard. Dazes targets. Double Immobilize is pretty good. So Bash remains a good ability and actually got buffed. Which is surprising. It was already a good ability. It didn't need a buff, but I guess I'll take it. Like, I would not be mad if this just got reverted, because this is really good. The 2 Immobilize would have been perfect. Like, it didn't need the damage too. Like, the extra damage and stuff makes everything easier, and the character feels stronger, and that's great. And so if people like just feeling strong, then that's cool. But I personally am not like the biggest fan. Alright. So when you go to Tempest, Chop does a bunch of stuff now. It ignores Weaken when the enemy's comboed, and you take damage per negative token that you have when you swing on them. So Leper has self-harm in this path. It's self-harm at the expense of extra damage. I think that's the biggest drawback here with Tempest, is that the negative token scaling means that, you know, obviously Blind is the best one, Immobilize is the second. Actually, Immobilize is the best one, then Blind's the second, so you can ignore it. But like Stun, it's gonna disappear before you get to swing. Daze, gonna disappear before you can swing. Weaken is going to mitigate your damage anyway, so it's like whatever, unless they're comboed. So yeah, you really need combo for this, and otherwise it's just more damage. So rest of this is the same, and then the stuff with Hugh gets the same buff. Break gets the same buff. And I really don't know why these couldn't have just been rolled into like a path passive instead of just being slapped on like every skill. Withstand the same. Revenge. Turn start. Strength or convert strength to crit when you have max strength for 1 battle. That's pretty awesome. So yeah, he can give himself his own crit tokens and fuel up. Those I was saying before with Wanderer, now you have that opportunity. Gain on crit, remove all negative tokens. 1 battle is the buff, and you can't gain block. Does not end turn. So there you go. The moment you have all of your stuff set up, actually no, because you'd have to get the crit rolling first, but yeah. So pretty much whatever path you're on, you're gonna be hitting like Revenge or Withstand mastered first turn. And the character's action, or yeah, like choices of abilities just get smaller. It's like giving Warlock Occultist like a passive on a skill that has to be equipped. So these are just turn combat start buffs that you have to hit. Well, not necessarily have to, but when they're mastered, like, why not? Alright, so that was Revenge, and then Ruin. can use it everywhere. That's cool. Okay, you can use Withstand everywhere too, so that's nice, but yeah. Ruin. Target has negative token is the condition. Targets an adjacent ally. Does not end turn. So it's already got the free turn by default. You get 2 uses, and you can steal all the negative tokens. And so you steal those, and then you swing into something on the same turn. No cool new Ruin token that was put in the game for 3 paths now, unless Poet doesn't have it either. Forget. Okay, so yeah. Only 2 paths get the new Ruin token. Yeah, steal the negative tokens. There's 3 uses, no cooldown when mastered. Tooltip needs to be fixed on that. Yeah. Get someone to combo it, get all your tokens, steal them from someone else if you need to. Especially here when there's no cooldown on the master version, so you can just grab them all off the frickin' team and then just slam it. Oh, man. Then Break goes through the same thing as I said. Overall, Tempest just hits really hard. It wants combo more than ever, which is pretty much every Leper path. And yeah. You know, it's... You don't have just free guaranteed damage passively anymore. You have to get tokens for it, but like, it makes it very easy to do so. This is probably the most interactive of a Leper path. Maybe, we'll see. Alright, Poet historically was Leper's best path just because the small damage cut plus a bunch of resists. And now, Withstand on Poet does 2 block, 2 taunt. Self turn start, you gain block and taunt for the whole battle. That's kind of dangerous to automatically generate taunt the entire time, because some of those trinkets that do that, like Pristine Lure, you can get into trouble when it like pops off every single turn. You just get, you know, smacked on the face. Yeah, that's it. You get block and taunt every turn, and you don't get the dot res. So this is admittedly weaker than the Wanderer version. We definitely got to clean up these tooltips, because as we're seeing here on the left side, it says Self cannot gain strength, minus 100% crit 1 battle, and on Wanderer it's 2 lines where it could be combined into 1 or made 2 on the other one. Solemnity now gives regen. Regen has a new icon, so when you're under the threshold, you get a smaller heal, but then you get regen on top, and then mastered is a little bit more. It's going to come out to more healing in a lot of cases, unless you have like a ton of HP and then you heal a percentage, like a different path, but this is still okay. And there are a lot of cases where regen is better, especially when you have no dot res. So being able to have regen kind of overpower like the random bleed you get will be helpful. Let's see. Oh, Revenge on Poet's actually pretty good. This is probably the best Revenge. So you have Strength, gain on killing blow. You get Strength times 2 when you use it. And then Revenge on killing blow, you get regen for 3 turns, which is quite a lot. So you can kind of regen max on this path. And that's it. You don't get the other stuff. But you also get the other like Revenge stuff on Wanderer. But otherwise, apply to attacker when hit, you get chance of combo, chance of vuln for 1 battle. So you kind of give yourself the Jinx quirk for like the best things. And that's kind of crazy. Like you automatically combo the target or vuln, so you get 1 of those. But yeah. That is kind of nutty because Leper wants both of those, and it just really makes Revenge pretty good here, because I mean Withstand just isn't really doing anything, and then you have Revenge, which is pretty strong. You know, I shouldn't say Withstand does nothing. It gives Taunt, which is like the strongest token in the game, so it still does stuff. And then we have Ruin. Convert block to strength, converts regen to crit if you have it, and then it gets rid of all your other your stance buffs, so having the multiple uses of them is pretty good. Realistically too, you can just hit 1 of these and then like mastered, and then cancel it immediately, or for this stuff. Yeah. I probably want to wait a turn to get regen, but otherwise, break again, just pretty good. It's like almost chop in terms of damage. And then steals all block off the target. Convert all block to, or convert stolen block to regen when revenge is active, but there's no withstand interaction either. I would, you know, it'd be kind of cool if the withstand version of this would convert it to block plus. I think it's a simple change that would make it a little bit better. Yeah, I'm just looking over this again. I don't see a reason to hit withstand when you have revenge giving you infinite healing and jinxing the target, and then you have like healing received on withstand, or on withstand, but like there's quite a bit here. There's some on, you know, solemnity. It's good. Yeah, I think Poet came out the best out of these again. You know, I mean, if you just hit revenge and play it like normal Leper, like hit revenge, and then you have, you know, chop, some utility move, Solem, and like bash, can't even be reflection anymore. You know, that does just fine. Monarch. Okay, this is the one that went through the biggest change. Thankfully, no rank 4 Monarch meme. We were able to avoid that. But Monarch gets a huge passive buff. On Killing Blow, 1% of Monarchs get 1% of Monarch's Oath, which is a stacking buff, permanently to a maximum of 66%, and killing a lair boss grants 10% ineffective against corpses. The mini-bosses also, like Collector, Shambler, I believe, are tagged as bosses, so it should work against them too. And the Oath affects different skills differently. So this is just Bounty Hunter's kill list in Confessions, where it gets the just ramping damage buff over time. And that's pretty much it. So that's what this path does. It gets kill list for free. But it does other stuff too. And as you see here, bonus damage equal to Monarch's Oath, which means, and his damage got lowered again to balance this out. So if you hit the 50%, which is the strength token threshold, then you're going to be doing 8 to 13 or 14 on unmastered chop. And then obviously it goes a little bit higher. So it can be doing some pretty good damage, and it ramps up over the course of the game. And that makes it a bit interactive, because you want to space out kills to let Leper pick all of them up. Or with the new dot kill counting, you can give him something that puts a dot on them when he gets hit. And so that way, he can also snipe kills that he's not a part of if something dies off his turn. Yeah, otherwise, Monarch Oath, more damage load overall. Purge, you can use it from rank 2 to hit 1 and 2. Ignores dodge, steals all positive tokens 1% of the time, and removes 2 positive tokens, I guess, after that. So in case it doesn't steal them, you remove it, and then it clears corpses. Steal chance equal to half of Monarch's Oath, which means at 66%, the max stack, you can get a 35% chance to steal all tokens at the end of the game when it's stacked. Let's see. And then on the master version, I guess it just rolls it twice. And the steal chance is equal to Monarch's Oath. So having the 66% is a good enough buff. I don't know why it's in there twice. That seems like a typo, honestly. Yeah. Push into retail, by the way. Alright, so Solemnity heals a bonus percentage amount equal to Monarch's Oath. So if you're up to 66%, that's a 91% heal without mastery. And Unless you have a healing debuff, when it's mastered, it's a full heal. So, pretty cool. Reflection. Targets an ally, copies all positive tokens to yourself. Removes blind. And then when it's mastered, you remove all the bad tokens from you when you do it. So no stress healing on this. So yeah, you can take all your friends' tokens, cleanse all yours, and then just bop something. Only got a 1-turn cooldown, so it's not necessarily bad. But the thing is here, since Leper's, again, his speed is a big issue, because since Leper's slow, the other person's going to go and use their tokens. So he won't really get a chance to steal anything like super high value. Like everyone's going to want to use crit before he can get it. So the reason I dislike this is it is nice to clear all your negatives. But as far as copying the positives from an ally, unless they get it indirectly when their turn's over, then you're not really going to be taking much. It kind of looks like it wants you to steal strength and crit or whatever off your friends, but your friends want to use the strength and crit too most of the time. And since Leper's so slow, they're going to go first. They're going to spend it. Or if they have any defensive tokens that are positive, the enemies are going to go before him, and there's not going to be anything left. Sometimes. Speaking in the biggest sense when describing these. But yeah, so Ruin is a very Vestal tooltip right here. So, give yourself token. Require self has no token. Yeah, so in this one, Ruin has come, the Monarch version, is non-chop skills equal, or deal bonus damage equal to Monarch's Oath, and he gets stressed per hit. Assume that means the enemies. And when he hits the enemies. Yeah, I would say when hit. Yeah, so self per hit. Alright, so adjacent allies get half of the bonus. So you want to put them in rank 2. Unless you have like a dot comp, so you want them to just hit rank like one person of it with like high impact. Otherwise, you hit 2 people and it can do okay. But rank 2 Leper, when half his stuff becomes unusable the moment he moves, is meh. This is, again, good late game. And this does not... You end your turn when you press this. But they get the damage bonus for 2 turns. Ah, yay. Really good for mountain fights. Because you'll be maxed out by then, hopefully. And you can just blow stuff up. And it's not a token either, so... Some of those enemies that interact with your tokens, you don't have to worry about that. And then finally, Bash gets stun versus combo. It doesn't combo the enemy, it dazes them, and then it gets stun versus combo. That is it for Leper. Let me see if there's anything that changes with... Yeah, there's no like passive they hit in here. And we can look at the trinkets later. Overall, I'm not too happy with it. It feels... in a way, it's simple, which is good, but... Also kind of feels like there wasn't much of an idea to do. Like, it just boils down to giving Leper free actions and more damage in exchange for utility in a lot of cases. Yeah, for some reason, Monarch gets a new movement ability of going... Yeah, it's all the way at the bottom. Let's see if I have it on frame. I do, good. Leper normally goes forward 1. Monarch can go forward 2, back 2, like Man-at-Arms. And this is another reason I'm like really, really questioning the some of the thought process here, is because some people are going to say this is cooking. This just feels like not having any idea of how to put some kind of movement into the kit just to make it worthwhile. Because the idea I had that I was trying to get in when I talked about it in the last update and stuff is I thought it'd be really cool if just one of the Leper paths withstand was like when hit forward 1, like 30% chance or something, you know, just so he's moving forward a little bit to stay in position in case he gets knocked out. And instead we get a path skill of moving. It doesn't matter as much if Leper moves forward 1 or 2. That's pretty much what it's coming down to. Like, moving forward 2 is fine, but you're still wasting a turn. Moving yourself is one of the most suboptimal things you can do in the entire game, which is why dancing skills inherently are actually good, because you do something while moving. For example, with toe-to-toe, you move forward 1 and immobilize and does something else, plus damage. Look at the other movement skills, like Grave Robber, very good example. Shadow Fade, moves back, stealth, strength, does something when moving. Lunge, does something when moving. And a lot of these moves are balanced around the fact that you have to move. But giving one path a forward 2 instead of a forward 1, because that's effectively all you're going to be using anyway, is just very questionable. Very questionable. The new Hellion has both of her thresholds moved up a little bit. So before it used to be 25% damage under half, and then another 25% under a quarter, which added to 50. So they raised the threshold and then cleaned up the tooltip a little bit better, which is nice. So now under 1/3 or 2/3 health, she gets the first 25. Under the last 1/3, she gets 33%. And these buffs last until Hellion ends a turn above the threshold, so even if you heal her, she'll be able to get one last, like, powered up hit if she hasn't ended the turn yet. And there are a bit of changes here. Wicked Hack stayed the same, so same damage range as all that. Iron Swan on Wander stayed the same. Yop now ignores Blind, and each target crit gives her strength, and she gains Winded on hits. When mastered, you not only get the weaken, but you get the stun chance as well. So this move is kind of doing the Steadfast Stewards update, the Subdate special, where it goes from 5 to 15% crit, you know, to make sure you master it, and I think the chance of stun is already good enough. But, yeah, it's better. Although it lost the 2 weekends, so you could argue it's not as good in some cases. If it bleeds, got a slight damage tune-up, if I remember correctly, and I'm gonna double check that. Yeah, I had to double check the notes. So if it bleeds, Unmastered got 1 point of damage shaved off, but then the plus version got more damage added to it, so it's a smoother mastery than it was before. Toe-to-toe now has a 1-turn cooldown. You rarely spam this in succession anyway. Still has the abysmal 5 crits. Ignores winded effects when mastered, but both of them convert winded tokens to taunts. So if you have 1, you get 1 taunt. 2 is probably when you're going to hit this most of the time, because 1's usually a negligible penalty, but 2 is when it starts to get kind of annoying. And obviously 3, you're going to hit this. And when it's mastered, you get the ability to have 2 immobilize instead of 1. That's a little bit better, arguably, but this is going to be a tough one to slot in, because with Breakthrough, you're already moving up 1 space, or on average, you move up 1 space. So if you're coming out of 4 with Breakthrough, you probably want to Breakthrough again, as long as you're not maxed out on Winded. And since we're talking about Winded also, we should talk about the change to Winded, which is that instead of minus 33% damage and minus 2 speed, it's now minus 2 flat damage and minus 2 speed, which is a bit better in my opinion, because all these percentage scaling things and how they've been additive and all that over the life of the game have shown to be a bit problematic in the long term. The more stuff gets tweaked and changed, added, removed and stuff, so making it flat is a lot better, because Hellion usually hits kind of hard, or hard enough anyway. So like minus 2 damage usually cancels out an upgrade, for instance, like a mastered damage. But then, you know, when you get up to 2 winded, then it's pretty undesirable. And one thing I dislike, and I understand why they did it, but that doesn't change the fact that I dislike it, is that a lot of these skills that Wind you can't use at 3 winded, which is the max stack. And it makes sense because they want you to kind of funnel yourself into clearing winded instead of doing something like spamming bleed out. But I thought that was okay. Personally, I thought it was okay to spam bleed out because, you know, you understood the risk of staying winded. You already have -6 speed. And in terms of paths like Carcass, it was a lot better to spam a bleed move to counteract winded without having to clear it. But now you don't get to do that. So it's something I dislike. If you don't, that's fine. So yeah, toe-to-toe, more taunt, possibly, and double immobilize. This can be really good if you can get up into like rank 1 or 2 where you want to be, depending on your path. But if you know, get stuck somewhere, like if you have to pop this and you can't break through, then you're gonna be stuck for a little bit if you don't want to be. But I don't know, I'm kind of worrying about that. It's not gonna be a big deal. Adrenaline Rush gives bonus healing % per winded token. So that means that it does 5 base, and regular version removes bleed just like before. And you get the on-hit heal with this just like before. But since it gives you extra turns in terms of duration and extra healing, if you're maxed out on winded, this can be 20%, which is good. And then you get this buff of self-healing for 4 turns. So you definitely want to save this till you're at the threshold. And Mastered, it's kind of strong because it goes back to having the full dot clear. And you still get the increased, what is it? The increased turn duration. But since it's doing 100% healing per winded, instead of, you know, just adding X%, like it scales. So that means that you have 5% goes up to 20, and in this case, since you're doubling the base %, you're going to double this one too. So you actually heal 40% just hitting this, which is pretty strong. And you get an extra use, and there's no cooldown on it. So I think, like, I doubt you need to hit this back to back, but it's pretty cool that you can use this 3 times. So it's gonna be really good. Bleed Out had, I want to say, did it change at all? Let me double check here. Okay, yeah, there's only one line here, and it was the one I was talking about, where you can't use Bleed Out if you're max winded. So it says Bleed Out's been slightly adjusted to abide by the new winded properties. So I personally don't like that, but it is what it is. Bloodlust gone through another change. So bonus damage if they're bleeding, remove winded. This is what it did before. And instead of lasting for 5 turns just flat, now it gets an extra turn per winded stack removed. So if you have any source of extra bleed on the team, then you're able to just stack this. Not stack this. You're able to just have this go on for a while and get a lot of bonus damage. So just looking at the raw math here, you know, removing the winded is already worth it. But if you want to ignore that entirely and you're just looking at bonus damage, then this needs to hit 4 times to break 100%, which means it goes over the turn you spent setting it up, the turn you skipped, so you get the extra 100. And even then, though, like if this gets 2 hits, like if this is just base, if you remove like 1 winded and you get 3 hits out of this or whatever, that's good enough. But is it good enough compared to like Adrenaline Rush toe-to-toe? Probably not. However, when mastered, this gets Execute 2. That is really good. And as you may or may not know, Execute 3 is usually overkill. There are a couple skills that have it, and Execute 3 is normally not needed. There's like 2 enemies in the game that have 3 death armor, if I remember correctly. Execute 1 is usually whatever, because anything that gets hit by Execute 1 was going to die to a damage over time tick. If you hit it to Death's Door, and dot is very common in most teams, it's somewhere in some form. So Execute 1's kind of whatever. Execute 2, though, is like 90% of the value. You know, a lot of enemies, a lot of the tough enemies that need to be executed, like, what is it? Just some of those like size 2s and whatnot have 2 death armor, or like elites may have 2 death armor. So having execute 2, bosses have 2 death armor a lot of the time. So with this, it's pretty good. So with Bloodlust, my advice would pretty much be only hit it unmastered if you have a bleed team, and then independent of a bleed team, just having execute 2 can be really strong if you master it. So probably not great unmastered unless bleed team, obviously, but then pretty good mastered. The trouble's gonna be slotting it because you got some other competitive stuff. Breakthrough does a lot more damage, and you cannot be at 3 winded, and it hits 3 people. So you can stack some damage on this and get some pretty good hits. Like, I've already seen people saying they, you know, juice it up a little bit and hits for like 13 on average across 3 people. So that's already a lot of damage. So we're kind of going back to the breakthrough Hellion strats of DD1, which weren't super popular, but it was a possible thing. So if you're able to stack up a good amount of bonus damage, you know, breakthrough in the first game could just do work and run over enemies, but here it's gonna be pretty solid again because you got the group removal of tokens and then also the bonus damage, and then apply on crits when mastered, they combo. So this is a solid move. Just comparing the two, I think Hellion for the most part got it better, but we'll see. Like, Berserker got just nuked from orbit, so we'll have to see what happens with that. Revelry, you can't be at max winded to go drinking, but otherwise it operates largely the same, except now it's like a flat heal on allies when mastered as well. So it's a bit stronger on the heal side, I believe, while also being pretty good just overall for stress healing. It's always been a solid stress heal, especially like early on when you don't have a lot of options. But the issue is that it's like a very late unlock, if I remember. Yeah, so where Revelry was pretty good before was something like Carcass that was always permanently winded and needed some kind of heal to keep spamming. And it gave you Deathblow Resist, which you don't get anymore. So they took off the Deathblow Resist. It heals a bit more, and it also heals from a higher threshold. Instead of 33%, it's up to 50%. So overall, a solid change. Just, you know, pretty much all upgrades. Howling In, the move that's been glued to your bar for 4 years, is going to stay on your bar for another 4 years. How about that? This was Thick's idea. He said this back in like 2022. Of having Howling End require winded tokens to use. So in this case, you need 3 winded tokens, and you ignore the damage penalty, so you get the full damage on it. As well as when it's mastered, you ignore block. So it's a really strong mastery again, and you don't have to deal with the move back. But the reason this nerf is significant, and this is the nerf that Howling End needed. Because they tried to do things like take away the block pin and the move, or added the move back and stuff. It was just the fact that you could hit it turn 1. That's what always made it so good. Is Hellion can turn a lot of fights into a 3v4 on turn 1 by hitting this button. And now you can't do that anymore. It's the same reason that a lot of the other really hard-hitting moves like Burning Stars are good, but they don't dominate because it's very hard to hit those turn 1 unless you have like Jester. And now for Hellion, you can't hit this turn 1 unless you get like 2 extra actions or something. So pretty cool overall. I guess you could break through into it or something, but yeah. Yeah, it's a sizable nerf, and my one issue is that Howling End is kind of like the finisher on every build coming up here. Ravager continues to be absolute insanity. Under 2/3, you get the bonus damage, so under 66%, and then under 1/3 health, instead of another 25% bonus damage, you get the Winded Ignore, so you get your full damage back. And then she ignores Death's Door penalties like Knight in the Tangle, except Knight gets buffed too, but she doesn't need that. So you ignore the minus speed and you don't get weakened from hitting Death's Door now. Gain on Killing Blow, heal 25%. That's a massive heal. And this character for Ravager is going to go from just all around insane damage 100% of the time to you kind of want to go down to like low health Death's Door area to get a lot of power and then kill something and push yourself back up. Kind of like a mini Flagellant in a way, except the healing's kind of baked into killing stuff. And it says you can't use it on corpses, of course. We'll start with the op. It's a bit different. It does damage on hit now and ignores dodge and has a chance of combo. And again, this update classic 5%. Crits up to 15 on mastery, and enemies cannot gain dodge for 2 rounds. If you happen to hit a crit, then the combo is guaranteed. Is this gonna be like super great on Hellion? You know, for Ravager, like, is this something people are gonna be pressing? Probably. Just being able to remove dodge. Like, dodge is a bit more common than block, I feel. And so being able to kind of go right through that into doing some damage and maybe comboing is pretty good. So being 33%, usually on average you're going to stick 1 with the master version, which helps out a lot of characters like Leper, who wants combo, Crusader Smite likes combo, or Stunning Blow. There are just a lot of good combo targets for characters, so if she can put up a couple combos while doing this, all the better. We have to remember this gets beefed up when she gets low HP, so you get 25% under 66% life, and then any other things you add to her like trinkets and quirks and whatnot. So it's a solid attack because it is big token clear, because you get rid of dodge, and since it does unhit damage, you get rid of block too. Adrenaline does kind of the same thing. You know, you get the heal, winded clear, and instead of ramping up in terms of raw healing per winded, she gets regeneration. That's the new restoration icon right there. Hopefully they change it. A lot of people aren't happy with it, but she gets the 1/3, and then for each winded remove, it gets increased further. And so it's gonna be very, very hard to kill this character because, you know, she operates pretty well at low health and Death's Door. Then if you have this skill equipped, when you hit Death's Door, it turns all damage over time into dodge plus, and then it can't happen again for 3 turns, which is going to synergize pretty well when we get to Bloodlust. So if you have this on the bar, the mastery is... Like, is the mastery worth it? You do get the 3 uses instead of 2, so the mastery is still pretty good. There's no cooldown, but yeah. So if you hit Death's Door, dot clear, dodge plus, and that's gonna be very helpful. Because Bloodlust, convert winded to dodge. You take 7 damage for hitting this ability, increased by an extra 7 per winded, so you can hit yourself for 28 damage. Does not end turn though. And if you're on Death's Door with the skill equipped, you have Execute 3. So nothing's surviving if you kill them. Or if they reach 0 HP, I should say. The mastery, you get dodge plus, which is definitely better. But even at base, it does not end your turn. So if you're seeing what we're talking about here, she gets all these buffs from being low health, and she ignores Death's Door penalties, which means that pretty much this whole path is going to revolve around bloodlusting herself down to low HP to get all the power-ups. And if she's dotted, she clears all the dots, gets dodge plus. So she can instantly just max dodge by either hitting Bloodlust alone or by having the Adrenaline Rush passive go off. Like a combination of that. Meaning this is going to be on pretty much every single Ravager bar, and it's a self-destructive Flagellant type path, also like Arsonist now. Breakthrough hits 1 target instead of 3. You have to be over 3 winded, so you can't be, or under, I guess. And ignores block, and it's forward 2. That's pretty good because you can keep yourself up where you want to be. And then mastered, It removes block instead of ignoring it, and they can't get blocked for 2 rounds, and the damage goes up a little bit. Not bad at all. Like, is this always slotted? Kinda. With how this change works, it used to be Ravager would use just toe-to-toe, because you would not only clear Winded, you would cancel the move back of Howling End, and then when you toe-to-toe back up, you taunt yourself, so when they punch you in the face, you got your low health buffs. And you don't have to do that anymore. So if you don't want to taunt yourself, you can use something like Breakthrough, move up. Doesn't even have a cooldown. So as long as you're over the winded threshold, you can just push yourself all the way back up. And then Bloodlust yourself into Death's Door, and then we press Howling End. Requires self below half HP, 50% damage when on Death's Door, bonus damage. And it wins yourself, then upgrade it just does more damage and crit. But since she ignores Death's Door penalties and can ignore Winded at low HP, for the very, very low price of having someone on your team that can guard her or something when she runs out of dodge so she doesn't die, you can just spam the heck out of this. So Ravager went from being the best path Hellion has to staying the best. And I am not very excited to see where this goes. So you have 75% total bonus damage with the low health, and then plus this. And then you get the extra damage on Death's Door. The only drawback is that if you unfortunately kill something, you heal and you get off Death's Door, so you lose some of the bonuses. But the 25% heal does not take you over 33, so you still ignore Winded. So you can keep hitting stuff with at least 25% bonus damage. Berserker. +1 bleed duration dealt when under half. And that's it. So no other scaling involved. We only get 4 skills change. Iron Swan does a bit less damage, but it's the fabled rank 4 bleed. In terms of bleed teams, historically, rank 4 has been the blind spot. Like, you had Caltrops, and that was pretty much it to bleed something that far back outside of like a Trinkets. But now you can. Bleed out on the bleed path does not get any bonuses or changes, very sad. Bloodlust, again, does not end turn. Removes Winded. Disable gain on crit effects. We'll see what those are here in a sec. But then also, when mastered, equipping this has the first effect of ignoring Winded for 1 turn, which it's kind of funny that you have the disable on crit stuff already, because, you know, if you remove Winded, you ignore it for like a turn on a crit, and then it's like, this has a 3-turn cooldown anyway. And you can't, and it disables it for 4 turns, so. Bloodlust is another equipable passive, and I honestly don't like this trend for some of the moves. Let's start with the Cultist, but I don't think it's going anywhere. We're too late in the dev cycle. With Bloodlust, removes all Winded, has a 3-turn cooldown. Doesn't end turn, though. And if you do choose to click this, it disables itself. And you're going to see what that means in a sec here. So equipping the skill grants gain on crit, ignore Winded for 1 turn. So if you press Bloodlust, you no longer get that benefit of ignoring Winded. So you kind of want to be a crit fisher with this. This is very DD1-ish in that regard. Crits were very powerful, and I think every hero had like a crit bonus. So like for Hellion, if she got a crit, she would do 33% more damage against bleeding targets for like 2 turns. And this kind of goes back to something like that. So if you crit something, you ignore Winded for a turn. And if you equip the skill, each enemy that's bleeding gives you up to 12% crit. So 3% for each one. So you'd have to do something like Iron Swan on turn 1, bleed rank 4, Harvest the same turn, bleed 2 and 3, and then like Incision to bleed 1. And then the whole enemy team is bleeding after that. And then you get an extra 12 crit on all of your stuff. But this does not get disabled when you hit Bloodlust, so really this is just kind of a chance of bonus crit stat stick like type of ability. And just looking at it like that is honestly not great. Especially considering you can transform Winded into like other great stuff, like more healing or extra taunt if you want to taunt and stuff. So I really don't think this is that impactful, personally. Because just looking at her moves, you can get up to, you know, being favorable here, you can get up to 22% crit, or yeah, crit on If It Bleeds, 22 on Swan, and then 22 on Bleed Out. But the thing here too is that you can clear Winded or ignore it for a turn, but even then, ignoring it for like one turn isn't that big of a deal, just because you can't use a lot of the Winded attacks, like if you want to use Yop, or if you wanted to use Bleed Out on the bleed path, then you can't use any of this if you're maxed out anyway. And same with Breakthrough. I really don't... This just doesn't fit in my eyes. With like, I see what it's going for, but I don't think it fits at all in terms of the whole cohesion here. Breakthrough on Berserker, if you're under 3 Winded, you go forward 1, bleed the middle target, so it's like Harvest on Jester, and then you lower bleed resist for a couple turns, and when it's mastered, you do a little more bleed, and you lower all dot res for 3 turns by 10%, and that's okay. This path is just kind of weird, because is it trying to be a dancer? You know, where you hit Breakthrough a couple times, go to the middle, get to like rank 2, and then like toe-to-toe your Winded off or something, then hit Iron Swan, or like Breakthrough up once, If It Bleeds once or twice, Breakthrough again. Like, I just don't quite get what this is going for, because of If It Bleeds not being usable in 1, or Bleed Out not being usable in 2. Which means this thing has, like, this whole patch just has very awkward turns. So like, if you want to maximize Bloodlust for crit, it's gonna be very hard to use Breakthrough reliably, unless you like hit it turn 1 and then like Iron Swan, and then you have it afterwards. So it'd be like turn 3 you start getting value out of it. Actually no, it wouldn't be turn 3. Like, you get almost immediate value, but you're not gonna get like full value until like turn 3 in most cases. Turn 2 or turn 3. But all that converges once more into Howling End, which can hit every freaking unit on the battlefield. If you are below 3 Winded, this ignores damage modifiers except Winded, meaning you can't give it like Strength, Trinkets, Crit. Actually, no, it shouldn't be Crit either, because that's a damage modifier. So, yeah, it has no crit chance either. Meaning it's just going to do the damage it's supposed to. Except you take the Winded penalty for the on-hit. And this one moves you back 1, but it deals half the remaining bleed damage on the target as bonus damage. So this is kind of like your boss killer, or just snipe everything. And honestly, just looking at this, you know, if you do, for instance, Encore is always way too powerful in these situations, but, you know, just to min-max, if you like Encore, turn 1, something kind of tanky, like a Captain in the back, and you stick the Iron Swan bleed, you can just Howling End it right away. So as long as you're not going through too many annoying tokens, you know, you can still blow stuff up pretty quick and do bonus damage. So this is kind of like the only opener case of Howling End if she goes like last. But the whole thing with Howling End that I'm disliking with all the paths is like everything still comes back to Howling End. And that's what I was saying before. It's been glued to the bar for 4 years. I'd like to see it not glued to the bar again. Carcass pretty much lost the identity it used to have, where it was something that didn't do a lot of damage outside of just bleed. And it was a bit rank flexible, which was nice. And there's some tricks you could do to actually get damage out of her. But for the most part, it was just an unkillable tank. And I say unkillable, it could still die obviously, but you know, back in the days of old, I've had runs against mountain bosses where the whole team died except Hellion, and then as Carcass, she survived like 6 turns and closed it out. So that kind of stuff is really fun. It doesn't have that very much anymore. Alright. And then it's got some weird utility thrown in. So with Iron Swan, you get a pull now for pull 2. And it moves her back 1. So it's kind of like a dancer thing. It removes guarded. So like the most obvious target is going to be Drummer in the Tangle. But you can't move the Tangle enemies because Drummer gives them all like 200 move resist. They're not pulling them. And there's only a couple other guards in the back, like Antiquarian and Blazing Aegis, maybe for Shaman. No, actually, that guard's the thing in the front. So yeah, this doesn't have too many chances to break guard. And then it moves her back for whatever reason. But also, we should read the passives here real quick. She gets bonus resistance to everything, pretty much, when she's under 1/3 HP, so she wants to be low HP. Gain 1 crit, heals 0 to 2 stress. I wish this was 1 to 2. And the dev notes, they're really trying to make sure that she has damage options as Carcass, but can still Carcass. And I don't necessarily think that's the right direction to go, just because you already have 3 damage paths on a damage character. The reason Carcass was cool is because it was different. And now we still have some of the same mechanics, like healing, stress 1 crit. The turn-in blocking per winded is lower. It used to be 75, now it's 66. So small nerf, but not a super big one. And then in return, you get some like weird stuff. As I said, the pull on this is kind of goofy. With Adrenaline Rush, you ignore the speed debuff of Winded for 3 turns. And you don't remove Winded immediately. It'll do it after 3 turns. And you'll see why in a sec. But yeah, clears dots. Massive cooldown that just does not get lower. And Mastered, she can use skills when she is at 3 winded for 3 turns. So you can spam Bleed Out if you want to. So it's like this really interesting feature of the winded skills came back in a Mastered buff. So same with Yop and stuff like that. But the reason this is important is because down here at Breakthrough, you can transfer up to 2 winded to the target that lasts for 2 turns, gain on hit, remove winded. So the reason it's like removed is just mechanically. So when she hits something, it puts that on them, but then also takes it off her to signify that. Hits 1 target, and when mastered, you can give them all of your winded. So you can give an enemy 2 to 3 winded every couple turns, and that can be pretty interesting. I think this is like the selling point of the path now. I don't see too much other reason to run it currently. But being able to give like a boss, you know, you're fighting Dreaming General, for instance, putting -6 damage on him with the Stirring Soil could be awesome. You know, and then you slap a weaken on that and it's going to hit for like nothing. So that's interesting. Yeah, pretty much it's going to be generate winded, and then toe-to-toe changed to, yeah, you don't get the immobilize on toe-to-toe. Yeah, and it's got a slightly higher cooldown for whatever reason on Carcass compared to Wanderer. It goes down anyway. So yeah, you can argue this is a buff or a nerf. Normally you didn't want to master toe-to-toe on old Carcass because it cleared winded and you didn't want to do that. Yeah, the selling point of the path now is going to be just use Bleed Out, Yop, or something like that, get winded, and then hit Breakthrough and send it to someone. And that's probably why Iron Swan moves back also, so when she gets up to the front, she can back up and then try and apply more winded. And of course, all paths lead to Howling End, and it's pretty much the same as the Wanderer version, just no cooldown. So as long as she can get to 3 winded, she can keep hitting it, but even then, that's why the cooldown is strange on both of these. Because unless you can send her like 2 extra actions, she can't hit it again reliably. Like quickly either. So the cooldown's kind of irrelevant outside of like a super niche case that you have to specifically build for. with a DLC character, being able to spam Hellion, like, it's just Wander Hellion. I don't even know why I'm trying to like go through it like it's something else. It's just Wander Hellion. Yeah. So, as I was saying, my issues with this path is it pretty much just went from a nearly unkillable tank to more damage, and the gimmick is now transferring Winded. Because I don't really see a point in trying to hold on to Winded anymore. That was one of the benefits before. You could hold on to Winded and keep getting your consistent blocks, and then you can spam Bleed Out or If It Bleeds. I mean, I guess you can still do that, since If It Bleeds doesn't have the Winded penalty. You can still spam this for hitting 0, but then doing 4 bleed. So I guess I'll have to try this a bit more than I have. And have, I want to try like the rank 2 Hellion spamming If It Bleeds on Carcass, because that's just what it used to be. It was either that or Bleed Out, and they took this away from us. So overall, Berserker needs a lot of help in my opinion. Like the If It Bleeds rank targeting or Bleed Out rank targeting and usage, launch ranks, and all that could be a lot better. Ravager is still going to be a powerhouse. Wander is pretty much the same. Like, a little tune-up, which is cool, but mostly the same. Let's take a peek at the trinkets, and with Bloody Branch, you do an extra 2 bleed when you're under a 3rd life, and more damage when she herself is bleeding. Bleed is the most common damage over time type, so you have a lot of chances to get that. And then turn start, she's got a guaranteed chance of getting bled in rank 4, and so this kind of registers as a breakthrough opener type of skill, where she starts the turn in 4, self bleeds, and then uses breakthrough to hit 1 or multiple targets depending on the path. Specifically for Berserker most likely, but you know, you can do it with anything. So it's an interesting trinket nonetheless. You know, get low health. Well, ideally you're low health, but even if you're not, you just bleed yourself and do 25% bonus damage. That's pretty good. Empty Stein. When you use Revelry, everyone gets 95% chance of a strength token or 5% daze. So it says target ally. The only thing she has that targets allies besides items is Revelry, and where it says right after Raucous Revelry self, she gets all that. Then Yop gives 20% debuff res down, and that's a pretty good amount. So this trinket's not bad. Rotten Tomato, 2 damage against marked targets. This is really good for Wicked Hack, because Wicked Hack has the combo synergy. Target gets weakened when rank is 4, so this is another kind of breakthrough opener, I guess. And she has gain when crit knockback 1. So this is kind of the hardest one to probably use, and you definitely want to have some idea of a dance team or some way to immobilize like toe-to-toe if you're gonna use something like this. I would say this is probably the weakest. Nah, it might be Stein, but in terms of just what it does, you know, if you just look at the top line, 2 damage against combo targets, that's not bad in itself. That's on average for her like 20%, you know, plus 2. So you have a lot of combo going out, you just get the bonus. Leper, Simple Flower, ally behind. At the end of the turn, gets positive token. This can be really good. On daze, stun, or move resist, gain block plus heal for 10%. That's pretty also good. There are, like, poets specifically would use this the best, but, you know, you can still hit withstand and get the other resist a lot of the time. And there's even synergy with Empty Stein. What if you get hit by this, resist it, and then boom? Like, look at this synergy. Inevitable End pulls Leper forward, so we're kind of fixing heroes through trinkets once again. And him, turn start forward 1, guaranteed turn end when he's last in order. He gets 5% bonus damage, which is really good in prolonged fights. And then when moving, he gets -1 speed. So it's like Crocodilian, the pet, but you only go one direction. And he's already the slowest character, so his chance of getting the buff, the 5% damage buff, is going to be pretty high. And the moment he gets like -2 speed, it's guaranteed, I would say, unless, you know, some weird stuff's happening with your team. This also means that for Inevitable End, you're going to want a dance team, so he keeps charging it up, especially in those long fights like I was saying. And you probably want to start him in rank 3 or 2. Ideally 2 for most paths, but 3 can work as well. Uncommon Seashell, apply to attacker. When crit, stun. That's very powerful. And I don't know why stun is gold in this one, but blue here. When heal, get block or block plus. Pretty good. And gain when hits. Chance of bleed, which is pretty much going to stick unless you hit withstand. Even then, it's still going to stick because it's only 30% resist. So trinkets are overall decent. I actually wish the downsides were a little harsher, because Inevitable End, this is technically no downside, because like I said, he's already slow as hell. So unless you're doing, I think it's Wanderer with Revenge where he gets bonus speed, then, you know, this isn't going to matter too much. Melee skills on crit stresses himself 25% of the time. He has stress healing in his kit, and his crit rates are naturally 5, like just straight up 5%. So unless he's getting crit tokens, this is not really going to come into play that often. And then as for the Seashell, I mean, this is still really good. If he's just sitting up front, you know, and taunting, if you want to use Withstand or whatever, a different trinket that taunts noisemakers, then he's going to be handing out stuns pretty frequently. And hopefully they don't get resisted, so. Trinkets are pretty interesting, like I said. The downsides really aren't noticeable. You know, it's like, with Empty Stein, that's probably the worst one, because someone else on the team is dazed and you stun them, potentially. Tomato's just kind of meh, but then, like, Bloody Branch feeds itself, so cool stuff there. And to wrap up, we'll talk about the participation stuff. So to participate in a Steadfast Stewards update, you have to go to the betas of Darkest Dungeon 2 and then opt into coming in hot. That is the experimental branch, and you'll have access to all this. You can use the in-game feedback tool to send feedback. You can join Red Hook's Discord and post there. It's highly recommended that if you do have Discord, you go there, because that is where they will be most active. Or if you have neither of those and you don't want to join Discord, then I believe support@redhookgames.com you can send feedback to.